Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher.
Okay, I'm going to do a little video to kind of demonstrate how to wire up a light switch, which is part of the article that I had you guys read for receptacles and switches. So I thought I'd do a little demo how to do this. So it says, I'm on the second page where it says joining wire to a terminal. Show you a couple of the tools I'm going to be using. So I'll be using some, these are called wire strippers. These are called linesman's pliers, right? Like a lineman, right? Somebody who works on lines. This is a switch. This gray thing here is a junction box. I have some 14-2 Romex cable. It's got a nice little plasticky rubbery sheathing around it. I've got what's called a this is called a stubby Phillips head screwdriver, and then I have a long, what I would argue is normal size screwdriver. I have some electrical tape, and I have some wire nuts. So I'm going to just kind of go through the steps here that they have. Thought I would just kind of walk you through it and kind of provide a little bit more of a visual. So it says check the power shut off. Power is definitely shut off because I don't have any power run to this wire, right? It's just a demonstration. So it says strip about 3/4 inch of insulation from a wire end. So I'm going to start with this side here. There's a little bit of the sheathing already started to pull away, so I'm just going to grab this with the linesman pliers. What I'm going to do is I just pull one of the wires down. That's a very common method, right? So once you have a little bit of exposure, you can just pull it down, and then you'll notice this kind of paper insulation here and some of the sheathing. So I'm going to separate these, and I'm just going to cut this off. Well, linesman pliers have these little cutters that are right here. They're just fantastic. So cut some of this off. There we go. And I'm going to need to do it on the other end as well. So what we're doing is we're imagining that if you kind of look at the way I've got this set up, the junction box, right? We're going to have the switch come in here like this, and then this wire coming up, if you will, is going to be going to the light, and then this wire that is kind of coming down is going to go back to our service panel where we get electricity from. So I need to strip both sets, right? Because the switch needs to get power from the service panel, and then it needs to go to the light. That's the whole point. So I'm going to strip another little bit on this side. So this time I'm going to grab the ground wire. It doesn't really matter which one you grab. They're all copper, so it doesn't really matter. So again, pulling back the sheathing. Trim that off. Then I need to strip these wire ends. So clearly the ground, which is the one that's the bare copper, is already exposed. I don't need to do anything with that. But now I'm going to use these wire strippers. So on the wire strippers, you'll see little numbers. I'm hoping you can see those at the very top up here. So there's one that says 14. So this is 14 gauge wire. So I'm going to put it in the 14. So and the way you do this is you put it in the 14. This is where I have it now. And then you can kind of see above and below, right? I got a little bit of sticking past. I'll twist it a couple of times like that, and then I'm going to pull straight up. And what it does is it removes the insulation around this wire. Wait. Sorry. I'm going to do the same thing for the other ones. Going to repeat. So 14, strip. So I'm good on that side. Go 14. I always twist it like that a couple times because it kind of makes the initial cut, and then that just makes the stripping much easier. Now we'll bring the switch into the equation. Now the switch has two brass terminals over here on this side. That's important. Then it has one green terminal over here, and the green terminal is the ground terminal. Now what you'll notice is that there's not a silver screw. Now silver screws are usually where you hook up the neutral wire. So there's no neutral wire required for a switch. The only thing that's really required is hot. So I want to make sure I'm orienting this thing correctly. So this is off is down, right? And then, on is up, right? So the only ones I'm going to hook to the switch itself are the hot wires, and I'm going to hook one of the ground wires up. I'm going to show you what we got to do for that. So I'm going to start by grabbing my my wire strippers, and I'm going to make some little question marks. So this is in step 2 from your article. You see how I'm doing that? I'm just grabbing the end and you just twist it over. Right? It's nothing real fancy about it. And you got to be real pretty. So hopefully you can see my little question marks. So now I'm going to connect said question marks. Well, hopefully. I'll take the screw out a little bit more. That's a good idea, just to go ahead and take the screw all the way out. Gives you more room to hook it. So now there, I've hooked this onto the terminal. And we'll screw it in. Ta-da! Now I'm gonna do the other black wire, right? Because remember, like I was saying, only thing you really connect to the switch itself is the hot. Connected it there. So now I need a little more wire. So pull the sheathing a little bit more. Hopefully you saw that. And the reason I'm pulling it a little bit more is because the white terminal has to be what's called pigtailed. So for a pigtail, we're going to use some wire nuts. So I'm going to take my two white wires, right? These are the neutral. Remember, for a complete circuit, we're going to have to have electricity come in and come back out. So, and I'm going to kind of grab both of these wires and I'm going to give them a little twist. Actually, a better tool for this is lineman pliers, as they're wider and they're able to grab a hold of the wire a little bit better. So I'm grabbing them and then I'm going to twist them like that. So hopefully you can see that they started to twist together. They don't need to twist together too much, just a little bit. You just want them to kind of be able to stay together for a minute until you get the wire nut on them. That's pretty good. So now I'm going to put the wire nut on them. You're going to tighten that until it just gets snug, right? And then I'm going to pull on both wires to confirm that it's in a good spot. Now the neutral, or the ground if you will, we've got to do something a little bit different with that. And the reason is, we do have a terminal here. So that's the green terminal, where we need to connect this neutral wire. But it is illegal, right? If you'll notice in the back of your article, it talks about that in the upper right hand corner. It says using pigtails. It says codes prohibit attaching two wires to one terminal. So you can't put two wires onto the one screw. And the reason is it's very likely to come out, right? So we don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make another pigtail we're going to include another piece of wire. So this is just another random piece of wire that I have, right? But it's a neutral wire. You can see it's bare copper. So I'm just going to cut out a little piece. What we're going to do is we're going to make a pigtail with 3 wires. So this might seem confusing, but this is the wire I just cut, the additional wire. So now I have 3 wires here. So I have the neutral coming from the service panel, neutral coming from the light, and then I'm going to need this other one to pigtail. Now why? Because I need the ground connected, but I can't connect 2 wires to one terminal. So what I'm doing is with that extra wire, I'm going to connect the extra little piece of wire to the terminal. So, got a pretty good twist on that. Put this wire nut on here. So now you can see that I have, now my grounds are connected, but now I have this extra little wire here, which is that additional piece. That's going to be the one that I connect to the ground screw. So again, we'll make a little question mark here. Making my question mark, attaching it to my terminal here. So now I only have 1 wire going to the terminal. That's the point. That's the safe thing to do, because putting 2 wires on one terminal makes it very likely to come out, right? Slip out of the terminal. So now, again, I got the 2 neutral wires, one from the panel, one from the light, and they're coming into the wire nut, and then this is another little wire here that's going to bring it over to this. So the last thing that I'm really going to do, right, I'm basically done. The last thing I want to do, and this is in step 4 of your, if you're looking at the reading, you'll cover these terminals with electrical tape. So I usually just go straight around the terminal like this. So you can see how I wrap the electrical tape just literally around the side of the switch, and I'm going to go all the way around it. So what that does is it covers, see the terminals here exposed, right? It covers these terminals. In the event that one of them slips off, it shouldn't cause a fire because it shouldn't have another piece of metal to arc to. So now I've got these terminals covered up with my electrical tape. Last piece of the puzzle that I'm going to do, and I always think is good practice, is to wrap some electrical tape around the wire nuts. So just at the very base of the wire nut, I'm going to just wrap this around, and it helps to ensure that the wire nut will hopefully stay secure, and in the event that one of the wires comes out, again, hopefully it won't arc and be a fire hazard, right? So a little bit extra time and electrical tape is well worth your it's well worth your time to do it. So at this point, I have the switch completely hooked up. So it looks kind of a mess, right? So what I'll do is I'll pull some of this cable back through the back side of it, right? So if you're working in one of these and it's in a wall, right, you can just literally push it back in the wall. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push these pigtails back in here, right? They should be all guarded up from arcing and that kind of thing. I'm just going to kind of cram it in there. I know it looks kind of crazy, but that's pretty much the method. And then you're going to put the little screws in, right here, one in the top and one in the bottom. This is off and on, right? You'd want to test that to confirm that it works. I would test it before you put the screws in, right? Push everything back in there and then turn your power back onto the service panel and then test it, right? If everything works, then go ahead and put your screws in. You put your plate cover on. Voila, you're done. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope it made the article a little more clear. So, all right.